Okay, well, we got a pretty good group here. So just like to say good afternoon and welcome to another Controlled Products educational webinar. This webinar is being recorded, so if you do not want to be a part of the recorded session, you can leave now, and we will provide the recording and any other related materials after the webinar. Today we have Mike Torn with Infinity RFID. Mike is well known in the industry as an expert in the RFID field, and Infinity has been very forward thinking in their products and adapting them to the market requirements. CPSG and Infinity have had a very good partnership for many years now, and we are all invested in making this RFID solution an easy one to install, reliable product, and a great performing product. As we go through the webinar, please use the chat feature to ask any questions. We will address your questions as they come up. But please, any questions or comments, throw into the chat. And with all that said, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Torn. Mike?
Thank you. And thank you guys for being a great partner and putting on these webinars. It's a great resource for everybody out there in the internet land and across the country. Again, I'm Mike Torn, Infinity RFID. What I'd like to do in this presentation is kind of build off the one we did last year. Last year, I talked about some updates, some new products, and in this one, I'm going to basically just dovetail off that, tell you where we are at, and then kind of moving forward. Got some new items, new products, new items, and new developments coming up. So let's dive right in because I know we've got about 45 minutes here. I've got a little bit of an agenda. So introduction, do a product review. So just give you an idea of the new points in the product line, what the current stuff is. Go over some new products that will come out that you'll see next year, early next year. Go over some updates to the company, updates to one of our products, and then at the end just do a quick Q&A in case you guys have any questions. And throughout the whole seminar, go ahead and feel free to give me a question. It could be related to the slides we have. It could be RFID in general. I'd be happy to help you guys in any way I can. So current product line. I think last seminar I talked about transition from our old universal tag to the new. That new tag is here. It's been here for almost a year now. It's called our Archer. So SAUMT002. Same features, slightly different size, but all the same features they had on the previous one. So multi-surface mounting. This can be on plastic. It can be on glass. Which is great because you can choose where on the tag or where on the car you can mount it. So if you've got a high-end vehicle that has metal oxide in the tint, you can choose to take the same tag, put it on the headlamp, or on a bumper, or on a side mirror, basically anything plastic 2 inches away from any metal. If you happen to have a car that has no metallic tint and you want to put it in the windshield, you can take the same tag and put it on the windshield. So it's tuned for both surfaces. So if you look at the other two tags I'm going to show you in a minute, those are for specific surfaces. This one is kind of two different portions of the car. So here's our SL HMT002 called a Lyra. That is a headlamp mount tag. So it's a basically plastic or polymer surface mount tag. Made to go on headlamps, bumpers, side mirrors. You can see in the picture right there. And same thing, break and removal, just like all the other stuff. And then the last one would be our Chara. It's an SHWMT002. This is tuned for automotive glass. This one will not work on plastic. The only headlamp you'd ever put this on would be like a classic car that's made. Basically, the headlamp is made out of glass. I'll say it that way. All of them are low profile. All of them, you can basically, if you look here, you've got the vehicle lower left-hand passenger side is where the tag is. All you're really going to see is the antenna. We don't really do any basically what's the word? It's opaque. We don't do any basically solid color or white or yellow or any type of tags. We really want our tags kind of blend into the aesthetic of the vehicle and be almost unnoticeable or unless you're looking for them, not something you'll see. And this is pretty much a silent one or not really unseen one. The form factor is the same, plastic's the same. The only thing we did with the SM HTG001 Mercury is the inlay. So the antenna and the chip that's inside of this laminate is different. Everything else is pretty much the same. But all the capability of doing printing, all the capabilities of customization are all the same as we always had. Now, readers, I'm going to go over the current line. So there is some slight changes on the readers. SC1000W ULE is the current model that came out. Oh, I think it's about 2 years this came out, right? Butch, maybe you can help me with that one. We have three actually generations of Purina reader out there in the world today. There's the SC1000W, which is the original one. That ran for a bit up until about 2021. And then the SC1000W UL was launched mid 21, ran up to about a year and a half ago, I believe. And the new reader came out would be the ULE. So what's different about all three of them is the engine inside the reader is what changed. So the RF module, we call it. Basically, think of it as the engine of it. So you went from one generation to the next generation to the very last generation, and this is the last generation available. But physically looks the same. So you look at it from the outside, it's still got the same LED, same mounting, everything, same cable. The Wiegand module is slightly different because it's coming in a housing that has a silk screen on the top instead of a clear cover. But the functionality is pretty much the same. This got an update as well. So we were selling the Tarvos as an ST2000W, and it was a Tarvos standard. All the new ones you're going to see coming out are going to be the Tarvos Pro. The big difference is the size. So this is a 12 by 12 by 3.5. The previous Tarvos was an 18 by 18. So this thing shrank about 5 inches to the form factor that it is now. Pretty much all the other features are identical. You can do multi-protocol, so you can still get a 6B license if you wanted to read TransCore or some of the toll tags in Texas. You can still get a TDM license if you want to do EasyPass. You could still get all these other options. Still supported. The one difference, and it doesn't mean a whole lot to our world, is you can do embedded apps with this, where you couldn't do it with the previous Tarvos. So if you wanted to write a custom script to make the reader do something completely custom that isn't standard, you could do that, embed that into the reader, and the reader would do those functions for you. So that's the main jump from a Star Systems standpoint of where they make the differentiation between the original Tarvos and the new one. Just as a side note, in case everybody's isn't familiar with this, this is actually a network-based reader. So the cable that comes off this is going to be, I think it's an M12, but it goes to a RJ45 connection. That goes into a PoE switch, and then that PoE switch also will go to a Wiegand interface module that's also got a LAN connection, and it's PoE. And that's how you get your Wiegand output and your I/O and everything else. And then here's a recent picture. So this is because Tarvos is a 2-channel. You can actually put the Tarvos on one side of the driveway and then have an auxiliary antenna on the other side. So you get basically two read points, or if it's 2 different lanes, you can have 2 lanes of coverage with one reader, one antenna. So you can kind of cut the cost down. Instead of having to buy two full-blown readers, you could do a Tarvos and then auxiliary antenna in the next lane over. And the Wiegand interface module that works with this is a 2-channel. So you can dictate that they go out the same port, Wiegand port, like in this case. So if a car pulls up, the reader will read them, and whether it's the antenna or whether it's the reader, it's all going to come out the same Wiegand port. And that kind of streamlines it for the access controller. If you had 2 different lanes, you could have one go out of Wiegand, port A, and that would get that lane, and then the other antenna could go out of Wiegand port B, and that way you're separating everything out. In this case, the reason why they put 2 to 2 here is this is kind of a teed exit. This is actually an exit for this community, where you'll have traffic making a right-hand turn coming in, so that not a great alignment to the reader on the right side, but a good alignment to the reader or the antenna on the left. And they also have left-hand turns coming in and going out here. So this is a way for them to pick up all the traffic on both sides, whether they're coming from either direction. And what's great about this versus 2 separate readers is they're multiplexing. So each antenna is not stepping on the other. They're actually cycling back and forth, making sure they don't interfere with each other. So that's why you can have both of them looking at the same general area and not have any dead spots. So that's one of the applications you would use for a Tarvos Pro and that second antenna. Butch, is there any questions? I can't monitor the chat and do this at the same time. Let me know if there's anything that I
No,
need to
I
answer.
certainly will. Yeah, Mike, no questions
Okay.
yet.
Okay, great. So last thing we have is the Pixis. This is something we've been working on. Um, Basically has an app inside that'll basically scan a tag, show you the facility code, the weekend ID. Uh, will show you, whether it's my tag or not. We're building, we're still working on. I think I touched this in the last webinar. We're building a library so that you can read outside tags, and it'll also do the same thing and show you the manufacturer as well, and then also the same thing, facility code, weekend ID. Um, Later on in this presentation, I'm going to talk about how we're going to integrate this into a larger platform. But just from what it is as a tool, that's its function. Basically, data collection and basically verifying number one um, tag performance, whether it's on a good spot on the car, and everything is functional, and also make sure that you're reading the right tag and the data is correct. And then the exciting part is the new products that we're coming out with. So there's quite a bit. I'll go through them, and this is where I'm going to hope that we've got a lot of questions because that means there's engagement happening. Um, so this has been a long road for me. I can tell you how hard it is to build your own stuff. But so this is the first reader Infinity's going to come out with. Um, it's a small form factor, 8 by 8 by 2. It's going to come this version of the reader, so it's going to be an RL1000W, W for Wiegand. Um, a lot of installers out in the field have asked me, so why do you have this Wiegand interface module? Why do you want to do these, with the Carina? And I struggle with that one because the Wiegand interface module does give you a lot of good technical data. You got LEDs to tell you what processes are happening. You've got some dip switches where you can interface and turn the arming loop on. You can do a retransmission interval. So for somebody who doesn't want to go very tech heavy, that was what my intent was with the Wiegand module. So to give somebody with just a screwdriver the ability to do all the basic adjustments to an RFID reader. This guy here is a little bit different. I'm going to eliminate the Wiegand module. So there's basically native Wiegand on the cable. And I'm going to give you the interface in a Wi-Fi app or a Wi-Fi, not a Wi-Fi app, a Wi-Fi browser interface. So that way you walk up with your laptop, your tablet, your phone, and you'll be able to go and adjust the reader, do all those other functions. But it'll make it so you don't have to find a junction box somewhere to mount the Wiegand module and then make that the focal point of where you do your adjustments. So it'll be 26-bit. It's going to be 12-volt DC powered. And it's going to have an IO that is a arming loop input. So basically you take out of your detector, you can turn on and off the RFID reader. So if there's no car there, basically it's silent, not generating a field. Car pulls up, generates the field, reads the tag, processes the tag, and sends the Wiegand data up to the access controller. Got an LED in the bottom, and it's got a buzzer that tell you that it's read a tag, which you can turn on and off. Oh yeah, and then the 20 to 25 foot range and circular antenna. So it's very similar to the performance characteristics of a Carina, in that it can handle tags that are horizontal, diagonal, vertical, and roughly around the same range.
Mike, when do you anticipate this product being available?
So it's gonna be available, I'm gonna say just after Fence Tech. So that'll be mid-February.
Thank you. So it's not too soon for people to get orders in the next 30 days or so.
Yeah, I would not go and rush out and send a PO to Control Products right now. I would wait, and then when we launch it, there's going to be an announcement, and then we'll do some things to make sure everybody's aware. So actually, before I go on to the next slide, you can take a look at a couple of things. So we've got the coupling on the right-hand side. That's where your 20-foot cable is going to be attached. So this is going to come with the 20-foot coiled up cable, and that's where you'd make your attachments for your power supply. That's where you would get your Wiegand. That's where you get your IO. LED you can see is in the center, and then that antenna on the left side, that's a Wi-Fi antenna. So it's meant to be line of sight to wherever you're using as your programming interface, whether it's your again laptop, tablet, smartphone. And it's a antenna that you can take off, and you can make a remote antenna if you wanted to go and move that somewhere else. I'll touch on that a little. It's going to be a little more important, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But for this basically this version of the product, that antenna is solely for programming interface.
And Mike, can you
So
confirm that reader will be backwards compatible with all the Infinity tags that are out in the market?
correct, correct. It'll read everything that I've made and everything that the Karina reads that I've made. So to give you an idea of how it's used, here's a kind of a quick and dirty diagram. Readers mounted, you get your power from either the gate operator or from some other power source, and then you're bringing your Wiegand right out to wherever your phone entry access control device would be. And the next version of the reader. So these are all going to look very similar because I wanted to make a very modular platform. So this looks very similar, almost identical to the previous one, but with one difference. You're not going to get a Wiegand output from your 20-foot cable. You're going to basically have 12-volt DC power and your I/O, your arming loop input, and your relay output. The other slides down the road are going to show you kind of why I've chosen to do that with this. Because this thing is going to then talk Wi-Fi to a Wiegand interface module. So think of it, looking at the market and the way that I kind of looked at how people are using the products out there in the field. A lot of people are using Wiegand bridges because they don't have the infrastructure to take wire across the driveway and then go to wherever the access controller is. Because typically the reader is going to be over where the gate operator is across the driveway. And there might have been a conduit there originally that broke. There might be no conduit. And there's a big expense to go and make that happen. So what I just decided to do with this product is let's make an interface where we can build that functionality into the product. And that way you don't have to go and spend the money on wiring or conduit, or anything. And also, I hate to say it this way, but you don't have to buy a bridge. Sorry, bridge guys. Um, but a way for you to easily get it across and be line of sight. So that's that version. So that's a wired version. The difference between that and this version right here is that this is PoE powered and has a LAN port, RJ45 port. So if you look at the bottom right here, you get that small gland. That's for the 20-foot cable. You look at this version here, and it's got a much bigger gland for it. That's because there's an RJ45 underneath there, and there's a weatherproof coupling that you bring your Cat5 through. So this is made to really be like a node on a PoE network. And that Wi-Fi interface module can either talk over Wi-Fi to this reader, or it can also talk to this reader via the network, via the local area network. So it's one way to go and have all those pieces together and just have this as a read node and then transmit data over. So there's really three different ways you could order this. There's an RL 1000W, which is the basic Wiegand output version, the RL 2000W, which is the Wi-Fi version that has a Wiegand interface or a Wi-Fi Wiegand interface module. And then there's an RLP, which has just an RJ45, and you basically bring your Cat5 to it, your Cat6 to it. So what makes these last two readers happen is this right here. So you've got a Wi-Fi and Ethernet Wiegand interface module. We've actually been shipping these. This is actually a product. So if you buy an E2W from me today, an Ethernet to Wiegand module, if you buy a Tarbos Pro, this is what you're going to be getting. So it replaces my E2W at this point. But it has all the same features as an E2W. So it has basically two Wiegand outputs, two loop/control inputs, because I'll talk about how we're going to use those in a couple of slides, and then two dry contact outputs. One big thing we did was we made it USB-C. So if you ever worked with one of my Ethernet to Wiegand modules, those were micro USBs. So at the time we actually made that product, that was the USB cable of the day. And as anybody who's trying to buy a phone or buy a USB cable these days, no, that's gone away. And we're a USB-C world today. So this has got a USB-C connection. Um, so the one good thing about this is this new module is compatible with all of my readers. The three new that are coming out, plus the Carina, plus the Tarvos Pro, and any of the older iterations. And this will work with the Procyon, it'll work with the original Tarvos. It'll support all those different platforms. And it'll communicate over Wi-Fi, LAN, OSTP, and serial. So that's how it's going to be able to communicate with those devices as well. So give you some ideas how you might use this. So here's just plain vanilla single gate. That box that I put there is basically a guardhouse. So you'd mount the W2W, what we can interface in the guardhouse. It's got an antenna that you can take, run a small piece of cable, bring it outside, and it can be line of sight to wherever the reader's at. And what's great about this is I'm going to pass data back and forth, just like a lot of the bridges. So if the access controller um, grants access, it can go and fire its relay, which will tell my control input, this guy's good to go. And then my reader will fire its relay output, tell the gate to open up. So you can truly not have any data or any wiring between this side where the guardhouse is and the side where the gate operator is. It can be completely wireless. Same thing with the loop. Loop can go to the W2W, which will be inside the guardhouse, or the loop, if it happens to terminate in the gate operator for arming, can go directly into the reader. So this is where you would use that middle reader, which would be an RL 2000W, because you'll have all the I/O and you'll have the Wi-Fi interface. So in a nutshell, this is single lane. This is how you'd use that. If you went with a dual lane, you could just basically add another one of those RL 2000Ws, mount it to another gate, and they both can talk to the same W2W because it's a two-channel. So you've got resident gate, which would be the one on the bottom of the screen. You have guest lane, which would be the one closest to the guardhouse, so they can interface with the guardhouse. And both vehicle traffic can go through, get read, and open the gates. Everything home runs back to wirelessly to the we can interface module in the guardhouse. And then you could do entrance, and exit, so you can have it so they're going from other sides of the guardhouse. Basically, still two lanes, but can still be wirelessly controlled over the two lanes. As you saw in that one Tarvos thing, you could have a double wide lane. Oh, actually, I misspoke there. You can mix the communication actually. So because I've got a LAN port on my W2W or my Wi-Fi interface, you could have one hardwired reader, which is the one you see in the very top, and you could also have a Wi-Fi reader if you don't have a conduit going across the driveway to be the one on the other side. Same thing if you had like the previous where you had two different lanes of traffic. Like if you have the infrastructure already in place to do a wired solution and you wanted to go that route, we can still support that. If you don't have it, we can also do the wire, the Wi-Fi side, and we can mix and match. And then bring in that handheld idea. So we got the handheld, that's Wi-Fi. So you can have a traditional lane where you've got Wi-Fi going across to the reader. Reader picks up the residents as they come in. So what happens when you've got a queue of cars? You've got 5 or 6 cars sitting there waiting to get into this gated community. You've got one entrance. How do you speed throughput through that vehicle lane? Well, the guard can grab the Pixis, go into the lane, and be able to scan each one of the successive tags or cars, tags on the cars. And in the Pixis, we're going to have basically a little box that'll go green and say access granted to tell that this car obviously needs to get through. He's allowed to get in, and that way they'll get verification that I scanned this car and he's been in, I guess, what's the word? Shoot. He's been logged. I'll say it that way. Been logged. And that way you can open the gate, and now you know all these guys are all allowed to get in, and they can all drive through. And then rather than having the gate going up and up and down, they drive through, and until you get the clog cleared, arm comes down, and that guard can go back into the guardhouse, put the handheld down, and let traffic go the normal way. So that's something that we're going to come out with. That's going to be a little bit later. So you'll see these all at basically in February. This integration will be a little bit later in the year, probably by June. So there's a couple of dates that I'm gonna bring at the very end of the presentation, but that's and it'll kind of make sense why I'm saying June and why I'm saying February. Now you
Hey,
guys are
Mike.
quiet. I would have thought I'd ask questions
I'll
by
jump
now.
in. I'll liven this thing up. Hey, it's Zach Eichenberger here.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting this on. You got a couple questions in the Q&A, and then I've got one that might be applicable.
Okay.
P. ever asked, is the auxiliary reader wired or wireless? And I believe that was in reference to an earlier slide.
Yeah, that was the Tarbos reader. That is why it's wired because you need a coax for the antenna. So it's going to be and it's if it's a short distance, you can get away with something like LMR two, I think it's 240, which is about the same size as an RG58. But if you're going to go distance like that picture, that's got to be at least 30 feet. You're going to go with something much bigger, like an LMR 400, which is like an RG6 or 8 size.
Okay.
But it's going to be
Can you
one
provide
cable.
those, Mike?
I can. I would caution against it because mine are really expensive. You could probably find a local RF shop that'll make the cable for you. Plus, if you specify how long to make the cable, they'll custom make it for you.
Yeah, we
Um,
can.
yeah, for me, I can give you specified lengths. I can give you an 8 meter. I can give you a 6 meter. But they're kind of expensive. But yeah,
Now,
yeah.
in the same vein, as we look at this new product and you wanted to do a secondary reader, can we do two readers wireless?
Yeah, yeah. So it'd be whether we're doing it. Oh, I have duplicate slides. Wow. Um, whether you do two different lanes like this, or two different lanes like this, or you could do a double lane. I think that's the slide I didn't make. I was going to make a slide similar to this, but they're both Wi-Fi. So yeah, you could just think of those Wi-Fi readers as just a node that basically communicates back to my interface module, and then you can route the weekend output any way you want. It could be two separate weekend outputs. It could be the same weekend output. Um, yeah, really, it's up to whatever the application needs.
Excellent. And one more question from Pete Everett. Does the RL reader need a controller or can it be standalone?
Ooh, as I just had to write that manual, which is painful. It can be standalone. It's not a great interface today because it wasn't really meant to be a standalone thing, but you can do it. The hitch is managing the whitelist of which RFID tags and vehicles can get through the gate. That's going to be the hitch. So what you really today what you'd have to have is you're going to have a CSV file where you're going to list all the tags that are allowed to get through and get through the gate, and then you would basically upload that list through to the Wi-Fi interface module, the Wi-Fi weekend interface module. So instead of being a weekend out, it would just use those relays to fire the gates and open the gates for you. So you could do it. It's not a clean way to do it. I would really push somebody into using an access controller, whether it's like a KPR 2000 or whether it's something small and simple. It's easier to do that because you can take tags in and out relatively easy. For me, it would be taking that CSV file, deleting that one tag out, or adding a tag in, adjusting the total number of tags you have in there, and then uploading it back into the interface module.
Yeah, and
Uh,
this good point, Mike. In
yeah.
this day and age of access controllers being
Yeah.
compact and reasonably priced, that's
Oh
probably
yeah.
the easy way to go. Great.
Now
Thank you.
I do want to get there one of these days and just have a basic one. And I think I said that last seminar. Eventually it'll come. And you'll have a better interface because if you're going to go in there and use a browser to go and talk and program my Wi-Fi interface module or my reader, there you should be able to go and add a whitelist and do your things. Today you'd basically be uploading it. But down the road, I can see where we can make it easy for you. But again, I wouldn't go full feature. I'd really want my access control partners to have really their sandbox not be cluttered by me. So I'll do like the basic. Yeah, yeah. In or out? Or are you gonna be able to come in, or are you pretty much on the bad guy list? That's about as far as I'll go. Like I said, won't do time zones, won't do access levels, won't do any of the other stuff that's happening. Just plain vanilla is what we'd ever get to.
10-4.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I have a
Yeah.
couple questions, and we have a question out here from Jose also. Let me start
Okay.
with his. Do you need any special license or certification to program the ID tags?
To program the tags, no, you do not. So there's no industry. I'm trying to think of what he's asking. So there's no industry body that will license somebody to program a tag. So you can program, anybody can pretty much program a 6C tag. But the way that this industry is, everybody's format is unique and different and not public. So you could go in there and program tags, but unless you know what you're doing, you're really not going to be making a tag that is functional with somebody's platform. I'll say it that way.
And we see this situation come up from time to time where somebody will go out to the internet, buy a very inexpensive tag because it's
Oh yeah.
6C, and they expect it to work with one of the other, higher level long range RFID readers.
Yep.
That's another case where in most of those situations, that's not going to work for you.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually that happened. That's happened to me in the last couple of weeks, where community bought a bunch of community logo tags, and they weren't from Infinity. They were from, I'm trying to think of who the manufacturer was. And they were a legitimate manufacturer. There's just nobody in our space. It was almost the equivalent of going and buying a batch of tags from like Metalcraft or ID Plate. Um, so they wanted to make them work, and they wouldn't work out of the box, obviously, with my reader. So I had to make a judgment call of do I want to give this guy enough information to be able to go tweak the reader to read these tags, or try to force the issue and sell some tags. And the fact that he already had them and everything was kind of moving that direction, I kind of helped gave him the clues to go in there and basically nudge the reader to be able to read those tags and process them. And it wasn't the good thing about it is he sent those tags to me. I took a look at them, and there wasn't anything exotic about them. It was a pretty easy process to go do it. Uh, but be careful, because I mean some of these tags you'll get from these sources may be programmed in a way that aren't really compatible with most of the reader platforms out there, because we're looking for specific data in specific places. And we can nudge things here and there, but we've got a standard, and there's they're completely off the map. Yeah, there's some places where we just, it's not worth it. It's not worth the pain and suffering on both sides.
um, there's a couple more questions, but let me jump back to mine. A couple of
Yep.
thoughts I had on the handheld that you were talking about a couple minutes ago. That's also a great tool to use for whether it's enrollment of tags. So you get a big group of tags and you need to enroll them to your customers. It's a great tool for that.
Yeah.
Also for mobile enforcement, if you're needing to go around a parking lot or wherever the vehicles are at and you want to make sure they really should be there, who it belongs to, it's another tool you can use for that.
Yeah, one of the other applications that came up was Coachella out here in California. Um, there's a lot of when that that festival like that or Stagecoach comes into town. There's a huge amount of people coming into Palm Springs, basically the Coachella Valley, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Indio, and there's a lot of, I could not say transient. Transient would be a good word, but a lot of visitors, we'll say it that way. And some of those visitors will be for the community, but they won't have a vehicle with them. They'll be Ubering back and forth from the venue, because parking is probably going to be horrible. And a lot of these communities are having issues trying to vet these people coming in. So you could give them a visitor pass, but if you could give them, say, a visitor RFID card, we could use the handheld to basically vet pedestrian traffic as well. So they could guard. Well, it could be one guard in the guardhouse, it could be one guard over by the ped gate, and he could be sit there. He could sit there and scan each one of these visitors as they come through, make sure they've got the right credentials, and then actually theoretically we could fire the gate from there too, because as long as you have a path to the interface module, we can fire a relay and make that happen too.
Okay. Just, more fuel for thought for everybody. Just think of the
Yeah.
different ways you can use some of these products. Um, Also want to make sure everybody understands that for the right situation, it would be okay to use a Carina if you've got multiple lanes in one lane and use one of the RL products in one of the other lanes, and you should have no
Yeah.
compatibility or interference issues.
Correct, correct. In fact, this reader right here could be a Carina. It doesn't have to be a PoE. If you had a power supply wired up to that Carina's serial interface could go back to the serial interface here on the the W2W. and it could handle that data as well. So you wouldn't actually need the little small like S2W, which is the serial to Wigan interface that I make. You could handle it all through one Wigan interface module. And again, you could route, say the Carina to Wigan A, and you could route the RL 1000 or 2000 to Wigan B, and then you could separate the two lanes by that way, by that method.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Few other questions here I'll answer, and if you want to add anything, Mike,
Okay.
please do. But P. Evers asking, does a Tarvos Pro require an FCC license? Answer there is no.
No, unless you want to go high power. So there is actually an optional license you can get that'll put it into Part 90 mode. So everybody that, Part 15, so FCC classifies our RFID readers in two different classifications. So FCC Part 15 is an RFID reader that's been tested to not interfere with other devices. So therefore, it can be mounted without a license and used without a license. And our Part 90 reader is something that's higher power, so above 1 watt. So FCC Part 15 limits you to 1 watt of radiated power. Part 90 is above 1 watt. So if you're using a Part 90 reader, you technically have to have a site license to operate that reader and at that specific frequency, because you got to choose a frequency when you get to that level. Tarvos Pro with a Part 90 license would technically need to have an FCC, yeah, yeah, was it FCC license to operate? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we actually work with a lot of the high-powered Tarvos.
Yeah, the only time that I think you would have to use it would be if you wanted to use a Tarvos with another manufacturer or a specific manufacturer's toll tags or access control tags. So it would be TransCore, and it would probably be because you want to read ATA. Because ATA takes a lot of power for the Tarvos to go and read and process. You can get away with the standard product for Seago Ego 6B and the new 6C tags that TransCore's putting out. But yeah, I think the one that you'd really want to do it for would be ATA.
Makes sense. Jay is asking, can LED lighting affect or interfere with the range of the readers? And Jay, I think you're probably referring to the LED light on the reader itself versus like overhead LEDs.
What could
Uh,
also be the LED headlamps.
ah,
That could be the other question, which I haven't seen any interference for that. Even the LED lights that are around the reader, I don't see much of an interference because they don't radiate electrical noise like a halogen or what's the sodium ones? Some of the older technologies. There are some vehicles though that have something, especially electric ones, that have something built into them that does create a bunch of noise. And some of them are finicky of where you put the RFID tag. Because if you put it too close to that noise radiator, you're going to have some decreases in read range. So what I always do is I'd always tape the tag, test it, and then if it doesn't perform the way that you'd like, start moving that tag around in a different surface and see if you can get away from that noise radiator. And it could be the side mirrors. You have to go extreme away from the front end of the vehicle to get there.
yeah, and it looks like Jay is referring to overhead LEDs because they
Oh,
can't interfere with, RF from the remotes.
yeah, but it should be a different frequency because we're 900 to 9 or 902 to 928. It really depends on the remote frequency. If they're in the same range as 900, then yeah, there probably would be an issue. I just haven't come across that yet.
No, and I can tell you also, Jay, that we've been involved with a lot of parking garages with LED lights in there, and it really hasn't popped up as a problem or a concern. Let me ask one other question, then I'll let you keep going, Mike.
Okay.
Otto is asking, does a handheld device have any troubleshooting applications for technicians?
Troubleshooting applications? Yeah, so it's what I would use to test the mounting of a tag. So if you can't bring a vehicle to the vehicle lane, say you get a lot of traffic and it's not feasible for you to drive this car in front of an RFID reader, it would be the next best thing you could use to just see if there's interference. There's actually a YouTube video I did where I talk about this and I show you. What I would do is I basically temporarily mount the tag on the car, and then use the handheld to know how far away are you able to read with the handheld. In the case of a Pixis, you can get almost the same range as a Carina. So you get out to 20 feet would be normal. But if you find that wherever this is placed, you have to get up 5 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet away to actually read the tag, it's not in a good spot and there's interference happening. Um, if it's already mounted, that's also what I would do is I take that handheld, start walking toward it, and then see where I actually start reading that tag. If it's out 20 feet, you're good. That mounting location is good. There's going to be something else that's it's an issue with the system. But if you have to get up close, within 5 feet of this thing, or the tag, I mean, yeah, you've got an issue with the mounting or interference with the tag, or maybe even a problem with the tag itself. Maybe it got damaged, or maybe just underperforming.
Good. Thank you, Mike. If you want to continue, we'll bring in some more questions as they pop in.
Okay, perfect. Oh, one thing, and you'll see kind of me alluding to this later on in the presentation. Uh, all these new products are as close to made in America as you could get. I'm not going to go out there to limit and say it's made, but for today's definition of made in America, it pretty much is. We manufacture everything here, so we're assembling everything. We actually make the circuit boards. You'll see a machine later on in this presentation of how we put those boards together. So for all intents and purposes, these are all made here. Now we may have to buy the components from other core sources because you can't buy some of these components, in the U.S. at this current time. But what we kind of set out to do a couple of years ago was to start bringing as much as we can back here and doing it in-house. And this is the first, not actually the first. This is the first reader we've actually are going to come out with that kind of is the fruits of that labor. Our weekend interface modules have always been built in-house. Not always, for the last at least 5-6 years have been built in-house. Actually, probably longer than that. But this will be the first reader and platform that we're doing that with. So we've got some updates. Just a couple. One is our RL programmer, RLPROG001. So this was a device we make that is for programming our Carina reader. It was originally done just for a tag transition we did a couple of years ago, where we had to get a new secure chip. We then kind of redeployed it again when the manufacturer of the RFID chip changed again. But now it's basically become a tool that we're using in our regular basis. The good news about this new version, the new version of firmware is 1.4.3. So if you guys are out there and you have anything but 1.4.3, you're not going to get the features that I'm about to talk about. You'll get just basically being able to update either the first version or the second version of the reader. 1.4.3 can auto detect and will update all three versions of Carina Reader out there in the world. So anything that was up until 2021 is going to be an SE1000W. It'll update those. In fact, all of our programmers will update those. Everything from 21 to when the ULE came out, that one is there's a couple of them out there that have the firmware for that, but most of the time I did not release the firmware for that one. It was something that on a special scenario I would do it. This one will do all three of them and give you the latest versions. And then the other two features I threw in there were just kind of leftovers from the slide before. Basically, the one great thing about this is it'll show you a Wiegand on the display, so you can do Wiegand tests. It's battery powered, so it's portable, and that way you can go from splice point to splice point on your Wiegand line to be able to go and verify Wiegand compatibility. But the big update is really those three readers, being able to support all three readers and being able to do it automatically. So you won't have to go get on a ladder, look at the back of the reader and go, all right, this is a SE1000W, or this is an SE1000WUL. You'll be able to plug it in, hit update, and then the magic happens behind the scenes where the programmer goes out and says, hey, what version are you? Okay, you're that version. All right, here's the firmware we're loading, and we're going to go and do this. The process is relatively easy. Once you hit update, it'll basically initialize the reader, and then it'll go through. In fact, I'm going to do a new video. If you you take one of our programmers and you flip it over, there's a QR code that'll link you to my YouTube video of how to use the programmer. That was generation one of the programmer or version one. I'm going to do a new version that'll basically show you all the newer features, and you'll see it'll say init reader, and it'll go updating, and it'll go one through all the way through 100 and be done with it. So that's kind of exciting, and that's out today. So if you were to go and get an RL, a new one, you'll get this version of firmware. All you guys out there that have them in the bottom in the past, we can do an RMA, send it in to me, and I'll update them to this latest firmware, give you a new flash drive that has all the firmware and all the new data on it, and then pretty much send it back to you, and you'll be good to go. So I would recommend you do that, because if there's any changes that you need to make, this version will have all those changes built in. All right, next one. This has been my challenge for the last couple of months, and why I'm continuing to get gray this month. We are moving, so we've been in this office that we're currently in for 3 years. It's been convenient. We're in Van Nuys right now. We're less than a mile from Control Products' Van Nuys branch. We are also less than a mile from Automatic, who makes our mounting brackets. So we're in a good spot. Lease was up. We've outgrown the space, and this is a 2-story. You guys will get to see that. And as much as we love the workout, it is not fun. So we're going to move on over to Chatsworth. So we're going to be moving over. The great news about that is double the square footage that we have today. So we've got room to grow. You can see the new product line we're coming out with. We're going to need space to be able to go and kind of ramp that up. So it's a win-win. It's a wonderful location. And it's an upgrade in a lot of different ways. So we'll be in there doing business January 5th and beyond. So there'll be some more announcements if you're in our distribution, either email or social media distribution. You'll see some announcements made when this is happening. But please forgive us if between now and then we're a little bit distracted. It's because we're dismantling this place and then moving over. Anybody that's had to move their office knows the pain and suffering that goes on along with this. And one of the big pain points is this guy right here. This is a small pick and place machine. This is one of the things that allows us to make those products, to make the reader, to make the weekend interface modules, to make the programmer. This thing weighs over a ton. The picture on the right is basically the robotic arm that comes over, and it's got nozzles that'll pick up all the components, whether capacitors, resistors, chips, everything. They pick them off the reels, bring them over, put them onto the specific spot on the boards that they need to be put. So this guy is going to be my biggest pain point, because he doesn't fit through a door. So I have to modify a door in the new place, get this guy into his new home without damaging him, recalibrate everything up, and get it up and running. But this is just to share kind of a side note. This is kind of my pain point right here. And then I alluded to some dates. Because we've got some new products, you're going to actually see us at some of the big trade shows this year. So we've committed to Defense Tech, we've committed to IPMI. So February 4th through 6th, we're going to have a booth. I can't remember off the top of my head what my booth number is. I should look that up. And IPMI, you're going to see the same thing. We're going to have a booth there, but 10 by 10. So come out and find us. Also, there's a very good chance our new products will also be in Control Products booth. I would love to have that happen. And that way you can come to them as well and see all the new stuff. But that's the two biggest trade shows. We'll do all the small ones. So when there's an open house for Control Products, we'll be there. We'll bring some new equipment for you to see. Road shows, or what would be, is it the tech event? ProTech Academy events. Okay. You do those, I'll be happy to come there and bring it as well. So it's going to be marketing craziness next year for launching this product.
Well, Mike, there are some exciting things happening over at Infinity.
Yes.
As I mentioned earlier, you guys forward thinking, but a lot of these products show that you're, really paying attention to the market's needs, looking at the technologies that are available and coming out with new products that meet all those needs. I do appreciate that, and I appreciate your time today. Do have one last question here. P. Ever's asking about third-party tags. As far as Akrina, Tarvos Pro, and the RL readers.
Okay.
Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, I can. So the Tarvos Pro and the Carina, we've been very open about reading third-party tags. And part of it was an idea that I was helping people get out of helping people get out of a problematic situation. Um, so the original intent was if someone were to go buy a tag from a not one of our normal people in the industry, let's call it a company that came and went and no longer is in the industry. I wanted to be able to go and say, all right, well, I can be the bridge to help you take the existing tag population without having to rip everything out and be able to transition over to Infinity and buy Infinity tags. And that was kind of the thought process of being able to open everything up and be compatible with a lot of other brands, and even third party stuff. And I did the same thing with the Tarvos. So that's still going to be there. I know there's some dealers out there that they're taking advantage of that, and using it for their projects. The RL product, though, I believe what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to read Infinity tags, and I'm going to give you the ability to read some of the I guess the legitimate players in our industry. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to read tags that came off of Amazon, and I don't want to read tags that are coming, from sources that aren't really committed to being in the RFID industry. So that's where I'm going to make a delineation point to that. It's going to be basically Infinity, and you're going to be able to choose from a menu of here's the other players that will go in and be able to read their tags. But you won't have the flexibility of going in there and saying, all right, let me go into this Carina and make it read this communicated community tag, kind of like what I talked about earlier in the presentation that came from some unknown source. Because I don't think that's good for our industry, honestly. I don't think we want to take tags that aren't vetted to be good at, vehicle tags to be specific and use them and make them work. There's a pain point. I actually do. You're hitting a point where there was a section of this presentation I was going to go over this. And now I'm kind of thinking that I should have. But there's finished tags that are in circulation that are supplied by legitimate companies and peers of mine in the RFID industry. And then there's also tags that are in circulation that are not up to that standard. Um, if you look at it, the way that they manufacture a tag, there's several different processes before you arrive at a finished tag. One of the processes is called a wet inlay. So wet inlay is a piece of PET plastic with an antenna and a chip on it and some adhesive on the back of the plastic. Um, that adhesive is really an assembly adhesive that allows you to go and sandwich it in within two layers to create a more finished tag. There's entities out there that are selling tags that are wet inlays, and I don't really agree with that. Number one, it's a fraction of the cost of a finished tag, and also it doesn't have the longevity and the performance of a finished tag either, because it doesn't have all that environmental protection. Where I struggle with this is I don't really want to keep those tags in circulation. I really want to kind of almost force the issue with those situations where I want those out of circulation. I don't want, because they're really giving the RFID industry in general a bad name, whether it's me or whether it's one of my peers. It's not a good representation of what an RFID tag should be or could be. And that's kind of where I'm coming from that standpoint. If I have one lying around, I could show you what I mean by that. Let me see if I can grab one. Ooh, usually I do.
While Mike's looking for that, anybody have any last questions or comments?
It's probably in my other office, my tech office. No, no, no. Oh, wait. Oh, here we go. Got one. Okay. My stash of other people's stuff. All right, so here's an example. So this is an example of a hold on, there we go, of a wet inlay. So you can tell it's not even cut consistently across the backing. It's basically because this comes on a roll. There's no perforations in the roll. So basically, you take this tag and you slap it on or this wet inlay, and you slap it on a car. And yes, it kind of works, but there's nothing really to keep it there long term. What you really want is you really want a finished tag that looks more like here, like this. So this is exactly the same inlay, but you can see there's multiple layers. Someone went to the point of actually went and putting die cut slits in this thing, so that it's got a little bit of tamper protection. So this is the same exact antenna, probably the same chip design, just one is a subcomponent and the other one is the full finish tag. And I just told you whose tag it was because you could see the logo on it. But that's what I want to do. Is I want people to have, I want the RFID industry to have a good name and people that have good experiences with it. And I want them to be, I want them to be legitimate tags. I don't want them to be just some subpar, some component of a tag.
Yep. All makes good sense. Don't have any other questions out here. Mike, is there any closing comments you have?
Just thank you for having the webinar. You guys are great partners for me, and I really appreciate you saying what you said about forward thinking because that's a lot of this is the feedback I get from meeting with installers and dealers and going to their job sites is I get to see how they're using the product. And then a lot of times they'll share with me the pain points they have. And they'll say, all right, well, this is something that, this is hard to use on your platform. And I'll take a look back and say, all right, what can I change about this? And there's been iterations of our product over time. Like the one that comes to mind would be like the weekend interface module. And we've had 6 generations of that interface module, mainly because customers have said the connectors are too small. All right, we made bigger connectors. Okay, I'd like to have a dip switch package where I can go and program these features. Did it. Okay, I want to have a range adjustment for adjusting the range of the Carina reader. Okay, put that in there. Your housing, I'd like to have the housing have better silk screen on it so I can see what's happening on the outside. Did it. So there's a lot of little things that kind of we'll take nuggets from the field and thank you guys in the field for supplying this because we're listening and then trying to integrate those into our product to make our product better. And that's one of the good things about us being in the position we're at. We're building stuff here, we're designing stuff here, and we have the ability to go and pivot and change that maybe some of the other players out there can't do.
Yeah, I've
Very
got some
good.
closing comments if you don't mind, Butch, and I don't want to steal
Please.
any of your thunder, but as I'm sitting here, listening to the whole session, I hope what folks take away from this is that Infinity is first off just deeply entrenched into the industry, understands the technology around the industry. They have an identity that is very much different from, maybe a large manufacturer. You can get to the people that really understand the engineering around these products. And just because we were just talking about tags, a tag looks like a tag, looks like a tag. They are not the same. And they're going to perform differently, which is going to be a reflection on your organization as a integrator out there, right? So we look to protect you from that. And then when we do get into some of those squirrely situations, what happens, right, Mike and Butch?
Yeah.
We've got a partner and a resource there to get us out of those situations. And I don't care what product you're selling, there'll be those times that come up. So kind of appreciate the intimate relationship, Mike, that you and your team have with us and our dealer base, and that Butch and his team are amazing. They're always that first line defense. But it's just great to have the backup from an organization like yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I think it's a great mutual situation. I think we help each other and we bounce things off each other. It's been a great, wonderful partnership.
Well, do appreciate you taking the time today, Mike. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to get back to your local controlled products office or any of us that have been on the call here. We will send out some information after the presentation today, the recording of the session, and then also any notes we have and the actual PowerPoint presentation. So thank
Okay,
you
that's
all
actually
for attending today. Mike, thank you for the great information. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
all.